To I'm going to call the special meeting for. Do I need to separate it out with? I'm going to separate it out with the work session. This is a special meeting for the library board to uh, reopen our discussion on the tax levy that, and there's no public comment time. The public hearing was held 2 weeks ago. But the board, there was a question to the legality of the vote simply because we took it during the public hearing rather than at the meeting. And so per our lawyer, he just said to be on the safe side, the best thing we could do is, as a board, decide to uh, take a vote during a public meeting. So that's what we're coming here to do. The second part, however, okay, but no, it doesn't mean we have to have public comment. The public hearing was 2 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago. You had the opportunity to come and speak 2 weeks ago at the hearing. And so this is just simply the board reopening it to make sure it's legal and actually meaning that it was done. I mean, you guys can laugh, I guess, if you do you understand that we're human beings just like you are? Like we don't get everything right, we don't do everything perfectly. We're just trying to do our very best. We're trying to be above board. The second reason, okay, I appreciate y'all coming out, but if you're not going to be respectful of us as a board trying to do something, I'm going to have to ask that you leave because we're trying to accomplish something and take care of something. We don't need people making comments, saying things, laughing at us, lashing out at us. We're just trying to do the best that we can. The second, for me, when I received the notice that somebody was questioning the legality of the vote because of when we took it, I uh, I personally wanted to revisit the subject. So part of the reason the board is here tonight is at my request. Um, I have just a very simple short statement. I didn't have the necessary information to evaluate the tax levy amount when I made my decision. And to be perfectly frank with you today, I don't have the necessary information today. I will spend as long as it takes over the next year educating myself so that when this hearing comes up next year, I will be prepared. But as a result of not having the information I need, I am seeking tonight to position myself in favor of a revenue neutral position of 0.224 until an evaluation of the needed information can be made. So, Becky, if you're still interested in making that motion of 0.224, I would second it this evening at this moment.
Then I make a motion that we set the levy for the 24 tax year
Mhm.
at 0.2240.
I second that motion. Now, we have a motion and a second, so there's opportunity for us to discuss. Does anyone want to discuss? Is anyone interested in discussing, or do you just want me to call a vote?
I mean, at the end of the day, I think that we have met all those things that we said we were going to do in Prop L. I have had multiple emails, phone calls on both sides. I would say the majority though, has been from people that have said, I got duped into this. I thought that this was something that would end, not continue on forever and continue to go up every single year. Now, granted, that is it's ignorance of the voter, and it's sad, and people are, they just don't understand what they say. Yeah, we love the library. Yeah, we love the school. Yeah, we love this. Yeah, we love that. And then they get their bills every single year to pay their house insurance or their car or house taxes or their personal property taxes. And they are like, my gosh, why are they going up? Well, it's because you keep voting it in, and then we keep having reassessments, and it's going to continue to go up. So none of you guys are looking at the budget every single year. I'm looking at it and I'm going, we can take this amount. The 0.215 was a very neutral stance to me. It was coming down just really close to what we got the very first year after Prop L was passed. No, I don't think it's a disrespect of the voters. I think it's a lot of respect for the voters and their dollars. So, you have to remember that there is only 10% of the population that even uses the library here in Cass County, but yet 100% of taxpayers are paying for it. So, and it may have passed with 60% numbers. I think 17% of the voters actually voted. I mean, that it's not like this huge amount of the public is all on board for this, but I guarantee you they're starting to wake up now at this point. And so, because I'd like to be able to, at some point, if somebody needs, if you need the money, if the library needs the money, if the school needs the money, that it's not just something that's thrown on there, whenever they feel like throwing something on there, that people actually understand what they're voting for. And, I still stand on my 0.215. That's where I'm going to stand. And, that's my piece.
So is there any other, I mean,
I just, I'll just say one thing. When the voters, I agree with you, respect the voters. And the voters said you can take X amount of money to do X, Y, and Z. They did almost complete X, Y, and Z. They didn't say you can take our money indefinitely to do whatever you want, whenever you want in the future. And I would like to know, what does the library intend to do with all this money? I mean, you can't just take $5.1 million and not say what you're gonna do with it when you have completed much of what you have said you were going to do with it. I just think that there needs to be, every account must be justified based on the coming year's needs. And I'm just curious, why do you need so much money?
well, and I don't disagree with you on that. I think when I've been thinking about this over the last few weeks, and just to be really honest with you, yeah, lots of people have reached out, lots of people have been very grateful, lots of people have been very unhappy. It's been a lot of a mix. None of y'all influenced me. When I have an unsettled feeling in my gut, I got to figure out what it is and I got to do what I can to make it right. And I was unsettled in the fact that I realized I'm just ignorant at this time about what the library needs and doesn't need. And I just can't say with certainty that the library can decrease its revenue by 4%. And I can't say the library needs to increase its revenue by 8% as was the potential. I can't tell you, and I'm on the library board, what the library would have planned with that money. And so for me, I'm trying to make the best decision I can make based on the fact that I have a lot of things I don't know, and but I'm going to work to learn those things so that when I come back, because this is just for 1 year. We'll have to revisit this next year. This does not mean that the tax levy will forever be 0.224. It just means for the year 2024, the tax levy would be 0.224 or whatever it is we agree upon. But I'm going to position myself to be able to say, this is why either A, the library can take less money, and this is why I split this, or B, this is why the library needs this amount of money, and I have my support and my information that tells me this is why. And so that's why I'm just looking to make the best decision with the information that I have right now. And I did not feel like I did that the first time around.
And you asked about what things still need to be done, or we saw a couple of months ago our insurance, liability, buildings, everything. It went up 15 to 18%, wasn't it about? 25%. So that is an increase that will have to be planned into the 2024. We don't have health insurance bids yet for next year, do we?
No, we don't do until mid-October.
We don't get those until mid-October. As we know, there are things that can be done at Drexel. or we need to put ourselves in a position that we can do things at Drexel if things start moving, because we've taken care of Archie. We've got to put ourselves in a position for this building also if we need to start doing things. We also put away 6 months minimum of
Operating expense.
revenue or operating expenses, so we have that. We also have a capital improvement line that we're supposed to be having sometime this year, a capital improvement plan. And we just haven't had, we've had so many other meetings, we haven't had that meeting yet.
It's on my list.
And everybody can weigh into it. I did get an email via the tax, Chris Mullendorf's office today that 0.2150 would bring in $4,665,880, which is considerably less than what we had figured 2 weeks ago. Considerably less, almost $900,000 difference between 22 and 23. And so that's a concern for me. The assessor is just closing his July books, and but this levy was going to bring us back between 15 and 16%, and that was
At the 215.
the 215, yes. And yes, I've been to the grocery store how many times this week because I have company, and fruit, everything is more expensive. I know, and we need to be a little more careful and do a little more comparison shopping here in the library. And I think we can give them the charge, the call to do that. And that's my paper.
Roger, do you have anything to say?
I tried to explain it last time, and it didn't do a lot of good. But one of the things we really need to think about in the future is to have some money available. The reason we were able to do Archie is because we had the money available. The reason we were able to do Pleasant Hill is because we had the money available. And that didn't happen overnight. That happened by saving up money
20 years.
over years. With all the years since we got the levy, we saved that money because we knew we wanted to do something at those places. We still know we don't need to do something at Drexel. We did Archie because somebody came along and said, "You got an awful tiny library here, and I really love Archie, and I own some buildings, and I'm going to give you a deal on some buildings if you'll put a library in this nice big building here that I'm going to make you a deal on." And we had the reserves, we had the money saved in the bank that we could be able to do that. We had one experience at Pleasant Hill, perhaps even a better location than what we have now in Pleasant Hill. A man came in and said, "I want a really nice library at Pleasant Hill, and I have a building here, and I'm going to use a third of the building, and I'll give you the other 2/3 of the building, or not give it to us, I'm going to lease it to us at a decent rate." And we had to say no. We didn't have any funds. We didn't have any funds to spend on that. And so the bank up at Pleasant Hill came along and said, "We're going to make a deal with you on our old building and the land around it, and it's going to cost you some money, but it'll be a lot less than going out and trying to buy land and everything at scratch." And we had the money. We had saved up the money from the levy, from the full levy. We had saved up the money. We had it in the bank. And so we could say to the bank, "Yes, we will buy this land from you, and we will develop this." And the bank came along and made us their foundation came along and made us a terrific offer, which made it doable. God bless that bank up there for what they were able to do for us. But at the same time, we had to have several $1 million on hand to do that. The only way to get several $1 million on hand is to have a high enough levy that we can put some money away. Now, as I tried to explain the other time,
I'm not trying to interrupt or stop you. Is there with respect to the motion that's on the table, um, do you have any comment one way or the other as to your, I mean, the motion on the table is to keep the levy basically, I'm sorry, the levy would drop, but the revenue would stay the same. What's your thought there as
Well,
far as, I mean, we were asked, what are we going to do with the money? I've never seen us really waste any money, and I've been on this board an awful long time, and I've never seen us really waste any money. We've been very frugal with our money. And the next point I wanted to make, because people need to know this, if we get an offer, if we get an offer right now, our only option is to issue bonds. And I don't know if people know what bonds are. Bonds is taking out a loan. It's taking out a long loan. And we have to pay interest on that loan. And so if we were to take advantage of something somebody would offer us today, and we would take out this loan that we call bonds, we would have to pay interest on that money, and that interest would come directly out of the pockets of the taxpayers. So we have two options. We can either have money in the bank, ready to go, when somebody comes along and says, hey, I got a great building at Drexel, and I'll make you a deal on it. Or I got a great building in Raymore, and I'll make you a deal on it. Or I got a great piece of land at Raymore, and I'll make you a deal on it. Or you need to rebuild this. We need to totally re-go through this building here. We have things that we haven't reached everything we need to do. And if we have to use bonds, that means the taxpayers are going to pay interest on the bonds. If we have the money in reserve, that means we have it out where it's collecting interest, but it's there available. So when somebody comes along and says, hey, I've got a deal for you, I've got a real good deal for you, we have the money available. We don't have to issue the bonds, or at least not as many of the bonds. We can take that cash and go with the deal, and the taxpayers won't be paying interest on loans. If we have to go to bonds, which is a loan, it's a long-term loan. It's like taking a mortgage out on your house. If we have to do that, taxpayers are going to pay interest. And that's the taxpayers need to understand that. We have the option of having the money, or we have the option of paying interest out of the taxpayers' money. And that's what we're coming down to. so any more, anything else?
I just want to correct any mistruth that goes on when we talk about this building. Again, this building has funds that could fix it. And we know that. So every time that's talked about, like, oh, woe is us, and we can't, yes, we do. The money is there. And you know that. We all know that. It should be getting fixed, and that's not on us. So the fact that this building has issues, I just want to make that clear. It is not because the library has a lack of money. So every time that's brought up, that's not true. And then one other thing is that we've got to look at the times that we're in. Do we need to be investing more and more money in brick and mortar buildings, or do we need to be looking at more of what people are using as in electronic, online resources and stuff like that? Because I feel like we talk a lot about buildings, and I'm just wondering if that should really be our main focus. Where are the people, where are the times that we're in? So I just want to bring that to point,
And to those points, that's where I came back to. I mean, I wrote this down. What I have learned so far is that I'm ignorant in being accountable to the citizen with their tax dollars. But I'm going to come to the hearing next year, and I'm going to be prepared, and I'm going to educate myself, and I'm going to learn. My best solution right now was to present a net neutral for 2024 so that we can start answering those questions, because the library hasn't made any decisions about doing any of those things. So I think it's really unwise for us to just sit around and have money and wait for something to pop up. We actually need to plan, what do we want to do? And then we can explain to the taxpayer next year, this is why we want this money. Right now, we can't explain anything to the taxpayer. We can't say, well, we want this extra revenue because ... All we're saying is, well, we're just not sure, so we're going to go ahead and collect it just in case. That's really a bad recipe for accountability. And
Well,
so,
the whole thing comes down to, if something comes up, we probably, like I said, I've never talked in millions of dollars before. All of a sudden, everything's in millions of dollars. And so if we have several million dollars available, or any money available, we're not going to pay interest on that money. If we don't have any money available, we're going to pay interest on the whole shooting match. And that's what it's going to come down to.
sure.
I think if we can adopt this neutral number, and I think Tanya and I will sit down and make a schedule. We know that September, October, November, we got to have work sessions on the budget. But in January and February, we start talking capital or whatever else the library, the long range needs of the library for the next 2 to 3 years. So in July and August next year, when we have to do this again, we have specific amounts of what we need. It's kind of a pre-budget planning before we can't plan the budget till the collector tells us how much we're gonna get, and we can't get that information until we file this paperwork tomorrow, right?
Yep.
It's a vicious cycle.
But I think one thing we can do, which I want, just as I'm learning in this process, is we need to figure out with what the library is currently made its responsibility with respect to the functions of what we do right now. What are those base needs? What do we have to function what we currently have made ourselves responsible for? And I think all of us should be able to answer that question. Here's what the library has to have for us to operate the basic things that we have become responsible. We've made ourselves responsible for in the decisions that we've made. And so that helps us, even without knowing exactly the revenue, that helps us know, that's just our foundational starting point. And so that's something that's really come to, I'm learning through this. So anyway, I do appreciate you all being
May
willing
I
to.
call for the question?
Yes. So we're going to take a roll call vote. The motion on the table is to accept the tax levy rate of 0.224 for the year 2024. Roger.
I reluctantly will vote yes, because I don't think it's proper, but if this is the best we're going to get, this is the best we're going to get.
Diana.
No.
Jessica.
No.
Tanya, yes. Becky.
Yes.
All right, we're going to conclude the special meeting.
I make a motion that we
Thank you.
close the special meeting.
I will second that motion. All those in favor of closing the special meeting, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay. We're going to move into our work session. Thank you guys for being willing to come and revisit this.
Your reference, it's on your website.
We had the public comment, ma'am.
Excuse me?
We had the public comment.
No.
Yeah, no, okay. Okay, look. No, it wasn't on the website.
When I put it on there, it was on
You
there.
put it on there?
It
That's why I was
it wasn't
asking.
on our agenda.
It wasn't on the agenda that we received.
It's done.
It's done. It's, okay. So we're moving on to,
I don't know what I saw didn't have it on there.
right, yeah,
The agenda didn't.
what we saw didn't either. So,
And you said that, I mean, you had a public hearing 2 weeks ago, you set the rate,
Okay.
and that issue is done.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate y'all being respectful of that. All right, let's move on. We're in our work session now.
Okay.
Work session mode. I gotta get the paperwork. I gotta get myself situated. Oh, I want my name. It's probably left down there anyway. I'm getting thin.
He's gone.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Jessica,
Yep.
I'm gonna give you the floor so that you can kind of get us going.
You know, you guys all heard me 2 weeks ago when I brought us to the table. And Becky asked that we do this as a board. And so right now I still stand with the policy as written. I've relooked at it. So I guess we're here for you guys to present, you know, pull tolls, whatever, and we'll address that. Um, I had something that just keeps ringing in my brain though, and it'll matter to some and others it won't matter to at all.
Okay, y'all in the back row, please. This is the last. This is the last. That's multiple outbursts. I'm just asking for you to be respectful, just like you would want me to be respectful if I was coming to a meeting you were in. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
So what I've found being a trustee is that libraries have different rules because of fear of banning books, burning books, books that, you know, information that that someone may not have access to. And we have socialist governments out there that they've stopped the flow of information. Okay? I recognize that, and that's never what I would want. But when it comes to children, if you look at everything else we have going on, look at movies, as we have eye rolls, look at video games, look at all these things out there that they have said, this is for mature audiences. This is not suitable for children. The question is, why is it with books? Why is it with books that we say it's all suitable? You want to tell me that? Okay? And then you say, well, it's parents' choice. Well, I have come up with a policy that gives everyone access to the books. They're just in a different place in case the parents want to be able to let their children roam without micromanaging them. So I'm trying to have to be in both worlds. But you know what? Funny thing happened when I was campaigning with someone. And they asked him, they said, well, can you leave your Christianity at the door when you go in? And he said, do you leave your godless world at the door? And she said, well, you know, I have my beliefs. And he said, so do I. And we all act on them. We all go back to them, except we're in a world where they say, if you're a Christian, you're not supposed to have a godly thought process. Well, you know what? I don't leave that at the door. And I had this scripture that was ringing in my brain for the last probably month or so. And it says, whoever causes these little ones to believe, whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him if a great millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea. And so that's what keeps ringing in my head. When you continue to put this stuff in front of little eyes and you purposefully do it, what are you doing? Like, what's your thought process? I'm not stopping people from having access. I'm just saying for the parents that would like to let their kids roam in this area freely and not have to worry about picking up a book where you're showing children when they open it up, oh, this is girl on girl sex. Oh, this is guy on guy. This is female and female. Oh, come to this part. Well, wait a minute. Right here it says if you love someone, this is what you do. You have sex with them. So I think someone else should be able to to say, okay, this doesn't seem right. So we're going to put this over here and we're going to give parents an option. Either way, you can take your kids here, you can take your kids here. It's all in the same building. We all have access. Now, I think what it comes down to is where the rest of the board is at on this, because I'm not really changing my thought process, and I think we all know that. So, what do you guys think? What holes do you want to poke in this? Do you see an avenue to making something work so that we're meeting the community's needs, all of them, not just the liberal-minded needs, but also those that are Christians?
I'm a liberal Christian, let me tell you that, okay?
Yeah,
And there's people in here that'll testify that I'm a liberal Christian
I don't know.
and that I am a Christian. So I don't think we need to be questioning anybody's religious beliefs right here, right now. And they've been questioned ever since it started 2 years ago. And people have pointed their finger at me and said I'm not. And I am a Christian. But where is this family resources going to be in our libraries? In our small libraries. Where are we going to put it at Garden City that not everybody can get to it? Where are we going to put it at Archie and at Drexel? We've got a little more space now at the NRC and at Pleasant Hill, but where are you going to put these dirty books away? Because that's what they're going to be called. Well, boys, we can go over there and get the dirty books.
Well, I think one of the things that I mean, I want to say is I don't think we're trying to, I don't think she is trying, anyone here is trying to put these books away, like as in.
No, they're up there on a shelf, but
They're gonna, I mean, every book within every piece of material within the brick and mortar buildings that we have are somewhere that are, as we all know, completely accessible by every person who walks in the door. So I mean, that's my only thing with that. And where we put them, that's a good question. I don't know that I don't know that the thought process is to try to put them somewhere secretive or out of the, in some little,
I
corner in the back. It's just, it's just going, okay, here's how we have everything organized now. I look and I say, this is simply about location and it's about, determining the criteria for which our library system is going to shelve those things.
and about how many books do you think you're going to have pulled?
I don't know. Dan, do you have any thought on that?
Actually, I have to find my document. I believe we have 85,000 children and teen items in our collection. Let me.
Well, the
But that
reason
meet that criteria, is you're saying that meet that, well, here's my thing. I mean, I don't know that we've decided that it meets, that this is the criteria that we're going to go with. I think one of the questions I would have for Jeremy is, do you see in here, because you sent an email and you were talking about it should have clear language and definitions which are easy to interpret and apply.
Yes.
What holes would you be poking in this right now for us as our legal counsel, saying this is not clearly defined, and those types of things that could help guide us in how we even need to look at this?
Well, I think, okay, so I'm gonna read it because I'm gonna read this section here because it matters.
Okay.
All books with sexually related content will be relocated outside the children and juvenile sections of the CCPL. So first part here is, sexually related content. At a bare minimum, I mean, that in of itself, I would say there's a range of what may or may not be considered sexual related contact. And so, and it may differ based on the person. So, in order to clearly apply this policy, first line right here, what is sexually related contact? Okay. The next part of it is going to be, which is less of a legal issue, more of a practical issue, is how and who is going to decide which books include. So once you've defined it, how do you know which books fall into that category or not. And so that, like I said, that's more of a practical question than a legal question. So I'm going to go to the next line. This will include all books previously in these areas and future purchases that the author or publisher may designate for these sections. So I'm not a librarian. I don't know how, if when you get new books, if those come with, suggestions in terms of where they're located or something like that. That piece I think is less problematic. This will include both fiction and nonfiction books. Again, I think as a practical matter, you run the risk of sort of having all different types of books together that may or may not necessarily go together. But again, that's more of a practical issue. A new resource location developed to house the family resources, as was obviously mentioned. I mean, that you're going to have that in each. You'll have to have that in each facility, obviously. And and again, maybe Dan has an idea as to possibly what that number looks like. Again, I don't know if it's big or little. And then, there will be no content in the children and juvenile section containing the following information, illustrations, or descriptions. Sex education. Again, I mean, I think generally people know what that is, but that doesn't mean to see it in a book you can necessarily, and again, people may disagree. Yes, that means it. No, it doesn't. Growth and human development, sexual intercourse, non-sexual and sexual nudity. I don't know if, with growth and human development, at a minimum, that's probably like anatomy books and that sort of thing. And then materials that invoke purity thought. I understand what the word means. I do think that, I think prurient thought is not a commonly used term. But beyond that, again, who decides what invokes prurient thought? Because it's, very likely I would say that it varies based on the person. So, how are we going to define that? And then again, who's going to decide with each individual item whether or not it does or doesn't? So, I mean, it's not, so there are some concerns here, but it really relates to, what's the goal? And so if this is our goal, how do we clearly define these terms and what we're trying to accomplish? Because again, it A makes a difference in actually applying it, and B, from a liability perspective, the tighter the language is, the more clear you are, the more specific you are, the less case there is to have an issue where someone disagrees and it's something else. If it can be, narrowed down enough that okay, everyone can agree this is what it is. You don't have to necessarily agree with the policy, but if, the closer we can get to having those terms and definitions nailed down and tight enough so that there's at least we can agree, yep, this is what it is, whether you like it or not, this fits in these criteria, then you're going to have a lot fewer issues than if you've got sort of broad terms that are hard to identify, hard to apply, and I think that's some of what you've got here.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I spent an hour and a half in the NRC this morning or this afternoon, and I only looked at 5 or 6 books. They were probably that one, that wide of a book about, and there were duplicates of books. Some books were published in 2006, 2009, 2015, 2006, 2017. They're not the latest and the greatest books. They're not the most recent books on that 10 to 12 to 14-year-old. A Girl's Guide to Becoming a Teen by the American Medical Society. Doctors, PhDs in child development and adolescent health wrote it. Scoliosis, skin care, friendship. One chapter about a girl reaching puberty and everything. By age 12, 90% of the girls in America have reached puberty and are having their periods. By age 10, we're at about 5%. And the other 5% is after age 12. And this is off, I've got the statistics somewhere here. The American Girl. Now, when you think American Girl, you think of the expensive dolls that you buy the outfits. The American Girl book is called Is This Normal? It was letters from 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds. Is it normal for me to have pimples? How do I do this? It almost every chapter talked about go talk to your parents, go talk to your parents. There was an American Girl Normal 2, more questions. American Medical Association Boys Guide to Becoming a Teen. Yes, chapter 6 was different and focused on boys' physical development, while chapter 6 in the girls' book focused on girls' physical development. But both books were almost not word for word, but friendship, talking to your parents, things like that. The boys' body book, nobody's checked it out since 21. 3 people checked it out in 20, 1 person in 19, and sometimes before 6 people. The girls' body book, nobody's checked it out in the last 3 years. People are not flocking to this shelf to get these books. 2 in 20, 2 in 19. The care and keeping of you girls, 2 checked it out in 2023. People are not, at least at the NRC, don't seem to, they check it out when they need it, if they need it. I raised 2 girls. I said something, one of my daughters is visiting, and I said, oh, that American Girl. She says, oh, I remember getting that book, Mom, and reading it. Now, she checked it out in the 90s. But, they're there, and they're not being used. I don't think it's a problem. That's my. Oh, one more thing. What is non-sexual nudity? So are we talking about potty training? We don't want that babysit, there's picture books, board books on potty training. There's picture books on bathing. So we're going to pull all of those out and put them over on that shelf. Or the night kitchen. Oh my goodness. The night kitchen. So is this going to be pulled? A Maurice Sendak, a national award-winning book, and we're going to pull it. One librarian, because the parents were so up in arms about it, she took white out and whited out diapers on every kid in this book. This is the history of it. And Maurice Sendak said, pull the book from the library, and if you're going to ruin my illustrations, but this is a book about a little boy on an adventure and his pajamas fall off. And so we're going to pull this because it's non-sexual nudity.
We're not pulling any of them. We're
relocating
them. And I think your point actually proves to my point. So if they're not getting checked out, maybe if it was in more of a family resource area, they would be easier for them to find. Yeah, I think it's a dynamite idea to have potty training books in those areas. Like, that makes total sense to me. If you have this family resource area, look, there you go. It's easier to find. And I expected that we would have some things. Actually, I really did nail down. My first write-up was way more specific. But I was told by a few different, well, you can't seem like you're poking at one book or poking at a couple books, so I broadened it. This was my compromise. Now, I definitely agree. Yeah, we can go in and fully define sexually related. That would definitely be helpful. And sex education, we can define that. There is definite things that we can do maybe to avoid, the issue that you have with a little naked boy in that book,
It's not an issue to me.
But we aren't pulling the book. I don't like it when you say that. It's just getting moved to another area.
Anytime you move a book to where anybody can get it in a public library. I know it's different in a school, But in a public library, you are censoring.
At the last, no, it's not censoring, but at the last meeting, you sat here and you said, I could get on board with some of this. You made it seem like you had some interest.
I
So
did.
what are you on board with?
Let me look at it again. Well, I've seen it for about 5 hours when I saw it the first time. But in the meantime, I have had lots of support from people to Becky, hold the line. And that's what I'm doing.
Okay, so you are on.
Please, please.
That was expected.
But I don't know.
You're not interested in this. You pretended like you were interested in doing
No, I
something.
am interested in it.
And now you come and you're
But
like, you
it's
just
gonna
want to pull
hurt.
coal.
It's gonna hurt the library.
No, you are hurting the library right now.
Wait a second. I want to ask the question. Becky, how will it hurt the library? Because you did make a comment that you're restricting books. And again, I'm just going to go back. I made this analogy a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about this. I have a Nintendo Switch. It's in my house. I put it in my living room. Anybody who comes in my house has access to it. I put it in my kitchen, same thing. I put it in my dining room. I put it in the bathroom. Anybody that's in my house can go in there and get that Nintendo Switch and play on it. It's about the location of where it is. It's accessible to all who are entering my house. The only time that it becomes restricted is if I take that same Nintendo Switch and I put it in my safe where only the people who know the combination to my safe can get to it. That's restricting the information. Everything else is about moving the location of the item. And this is where I'm struggling. I'm trying to understand. We're talking about location. We're trying to define terms. So I'm trying to understand there's multiple things that are being brought up. Can someone help me understand, if nothing else, the idea of location? Like I have stacks of paper here that show me every library system determines for that system where they're going to locate books. There's no law, there's nothing in place that says every library has to put every book in exactly the place that the author says that it has to go. There's different locations, same book. I look in Missouri Evergreen, same exact book, multiple, sometimes they're in the same location, but a lot of times they're in different locations. And that's based simply on the criteria that library system has set into place. So I think what's being asked is that we consider amending the criteria that we currently have. Because right now, the way I understand it, we just put the books wherever the author suggests that they be.
It's not true.
And they follow a Dewey Decimal System
Yeah.
too.
So authors and publishers do have a recommended intended audience. And especially for the children's collection and the teen collection, the youth services coordinator will go through the book as much as they can, before they purchase it and assess it and see if that is exactly
Based on what criteria? We've set some criteria, correct?
Well, there's already existing criteria to make sure that it's developmentally appropriate. Sometimes how
the criteria.
So one of the things, could you get to the board what that criteria currently is?
Could I throw an example?
Sure.
This
course
is
you
the
can.
book that started all this stuff. Right here, perfectly normal. It says right on the front of it, for age 10 and up. This little book, how many people do you think went through and edited this book?
Doesn't matter.
What is it?
81.
Doesn't matter.
81 people went through this book who dedicated their entire lives, their entire education to children. 81. We haven't had 81 protesters run here. I mean, we have 81 people edited this book. And how did this book get started anyway? There's somebody on the internet that put an internet site and it said here's 120 books At least one is in every library in the United States. Go find one and go protest. And that's how this whole thing got started.
Wait a second. Where's your information that tells us that?
Well, I've had it different times. I don't happen to have it right now, but that's how it got started.
But
It was called,
you're
it was
making
called
it, but you're
the
making it,
120 books that you can protest. And if you look on the internet, you can find it. And so that's why the whole thing got started. But if you want me to do some compromising, I'll try one compromise. Family resources. That's your nomenclature, family resources? But you're not going to do things that say, oh, well, here's how we fix relations between husbands and wives. This is how we fix relations between children and their parents or grandparents or whatever. No. Why are you saying family resources? Because it's hiding it. Why don't we do the honest thing and say, this is the sex section?
Okay.
And let's put the
That's
sign
fine,
up and
if
say,
that's what
this
you
is the
wanna
sex
do.
section.
Okay.
And there's two reasons why I would like that. First, it's honest. And second, about a year and a half ago, when we first started doing this, we started talking about this. I had a person come up and say, we're going to get this book first, and then we're going to get all the sex books out of there. And then third, we're going to get anything dealing with the psychology or the physiology of youth in this county. And they used the examples of autism, of Down syndrome, of dyslexia. We're going after all of them. Because that's what I was told a year and a half ago when this whole thing started. This is the opening shot, and we're going to have an entire war here. And so, what do I look at here? It says family resources. If you're willing to say, this is the sex section, and put a big sign up there and say this is the sex section.
Well, then that would mean that we would just put books based on sex in that area then.
Yes.
So that's a different policy in a different section. So, I mean,
No, what we're
that's fine
saying
if
here is
that's what you're
everything, all the other thing
suggesting.
you have is sex.
I mean, if you want to just have a sex section, why don't you propose that policy? I was specifically told that I probably needed to not just target sex books. So that's not what I'm
So we're not going to target sex
So
books.
I'm
What
not
else are we
specifically
targeting then?
targeting
Who
sex
who
books.
else are we shooting at other than sex books?
I said we could create this family resource section. So there's other things that I thought we might decide we want to put in that section.
Like autism, Down syndrome, dyslexia?
I don't know. I mean, like, that's something that we could talk about. And that's why, I was like, well, if we're going to do family resource, I think it was, we had, her name slips my head right at the moment. It was Elizabeth. And she came here and she spoke before us and she had a whole list of ideas.
Elizabeth Tyler.
Yes, Elizabeth Tyler. And that was a great idea. And I've pondered on that ever since then. And her whole goal was that, let's make I think she called it a parent resource section. The reason I actually switched to the family is because we don't always have just parents. We have grandparents. We have guardians. We have all sorts of things. So, to just pinpoint this is just for parents, well, that might not be an accurate thing. So, no, more could be involved in this than just textbooks. You could decide that, hey, this is a great idea and we want to add more to this
And,
section.
yeah, we're going to add more, and we're going to add more, and we're going to add more.
If it's a good thing.
So
A few months ago, this thing's really out of order, actually. Because a few months ago, we made a policies. We went through all the policies in the library, and we went and set policies, and we voted, I think unanimously, Dan can probably look it up, but I think unanimously, that that the library itself is not going to get interfered. That the parents were the people in charge. Is that our policy, Dan?
I think you're just talking about the unattended
We
child.
were going to make the parents responsible, because if you as a parent are going to come in here and say, and I couldn't believe it when you actually said it, that I don't want to go in the library with my children because I'm not capable of taking care of my children in the library.
That was never said.
Why else wouldn't you go in the library
That
with your
was
children?
never said. What I said, let me correct you, is that I'm not signing that paperwork that says that my son has access to everything in the library, and I'm giving him permission to have access to everything in the library so that he can get a new card. the new demand that was put on parents that was wrong. And I suggested that we change up the verbiage so parents aren't signing their rights away to their children's access for their children's access. Because I can tell my child, hey, you're only allowed to be in this section. I don't want you over here. I don't want you over here. Yeah, I'm allowed to do that.
Okay, but the
But I'm
policy,
not going to sign a policy that
You don't
says that
have
I'm
to.
giving him access.
you don't have
I
to.
do if he's going to be able to use a library card. That's wrong. And I will stand by that. And there's other parents that think it's wrong too. There's other parents that cave, unlike me, and they will go ahead and sign it for the sake of letting their kid have a library card.
But you're still responsible, even if he has a library card, you're still responsible for taking
right.
care of your own child.
That's right.
By doing this, what you're saying is the library is responsible for gate cutting out whatever we decide to
No, I'm
gate cut
not.
out and put them in a separate spot.
How is it making the library responsible for the child?
Because we are picking and choosing what we're going to put in this section, what we have in this section, and that's why I said if we want to put his big sign that says sixth section, I'd be more favorable for it because that's not saying, as I was told a year and a half ago, that we're going to go after the autism books, we're going to go after the Down syndrome books, we're going to go after this dyslexia, we're going to go after any physical or psychological problem that a child has. And we're going to take those books and we're going to put them someplace else because we don't want the children to know that these things exist. I mean, this is what the direction we're going. Now we said that children are responsible, and if we're going to take the responsibility of saying which books are these are in this section and which books are not in this section, then we're taking responsibility for the children.
We say that all the time. We decide exactly where books are going to be.
And the new decimal system tells us.
There's displays that they'll do where they specifically put all sorts of like-kind books. I mean, I think I've seen them in libraries where we got, well, these are all the American history books. We're making this big display of them over the 4th of July. Or,
Okay,
we've got displays.
A display.
Yes. But
Not permanent.
we still, what is it?
Well, there are actually, I mean, there's large print area, there's, I mean, within the children's section, like you can go and find.
I need to know who's doing this picking and choosing.
That's what I want to know. Who's
Because if we're going to say we're going to do some picking and choosing, then who is being the parents of all the kids in Cass County?
How are they being?
Because you're doing the picking and choosing for all of the parents in Cass County. Whoever does that picking and choosing.
You're going to pull all the anatomy books.
We're going to pull all the anatomy books
out of
out.
juvenile fiction, and you're going to pull all the human growth and development books, such as these by the American Medical Association and the American Girls Store. You're going to pull a lot of the, is it called eyewitness books about the Mayans? Because I looked through them today, and by golly, some of those sculptures are nude from the waist up.
So
are we going to pull all the Michelangelo and the inventor books with pictures of David and the drawings that Michelangelo? Are we going to pull all of those?
So do you have another proposal, or you just
leave them where they're at?
Okay. So
they haven't been a problem.
And we saw, like I said, we had a unanimous vote. We had a unanimous vote that settled the money. That the parents are responsible, and every parent is responsible for their own children, every grandparent's responsible for their own grandchildren, everybody who's there is responsible. And we went several months without any of this happening because all the money settled down and the parents are responsible, you agree the parents are responsible, everybody agrees the parents are responsible. And so the mud settled down. And then all of a sudden, out of absolutely nowhere, you came and stirred the mud again.
You thought it was settled. It was never settled.
It was settled.
It was settled for you.
It was settled.
It wasn't settled for everybody in the community.
It was settled by a unanimous vote on policy. It was settled by a unanimous vote.
That's all we did was decide at what age the library. I mean, I don't think well, my personal opinion didn't win out on that, but all we decided was if you're going to let your child come to the library unattended, they have to be a certain age to do that.
But before that,
But it was just a different, it was
there's a
just a
policy
different.
that said that the parents are responsible, the library will not be responsible, or something such as that. Is that right, Dan?
Well, I mean, though, that's,
We have that in our current policy.
it's just it's within the policy. I mean, the library is saying, yeah, the library can't be responsible for what your child views, just like the library can't be your child's babysitter.
But we can hide
I
them.
mean,
Is that, but that we can
how,
hide it?
No,
Again, we're not hiding it.
again, this is where I don't understand. I'm really trying to understand. What do you mean hide them? If I
Okay,
hide
let me-
something, it means you can't find it.
If
I mean,
if we had it titled properly, okay. But we don't have it titled properly. But okay, I'll give you an example. When I was in graduate school at the University of Nebraska Kearney, I taught classes in library use. And one of the things we emphasized at that college was that if you take a book off the shelf, you don't put it back on the shelf. You put it off so a librarian can put it on the shelf. Because what would happen is you take a book off the shelf and the book goes like this, and then you look up and you don't see the hole where that book goes, so you just stick it in there 2 or 3 books over. And it's like a magic trick. Poof, that book disappears. So that all the other people who want to find that book go to where that book belongs, and that book ain't there. And they're not going to go through all the other shelves to try to find that book. They're going to look where the book belongs. And we have the same problem in our libraries. I've talked to our librarians, and they go through all the shelves once in a while and look for all the books that are out of place and put them back in place. And as soon as they put them back in place, poof, it comes back to life again. As long as it's in the wrong place, it may as well have not existed. When it's in the right place, it exists.
well, but
And so
the
when
point-
somebody goes to the library and wants to look for a specific subject, and they look through whatever the electronic equivalent is of the card catalog today, and they find, okay, the library has this book. And so they go to right where that book is at, and they look for that book right where it belongs,
we're right where it says.
and it's not
It is.
not there.
But
It may
well,
not
wait,
exist.
but wait a second. Wherever the book is located in the library, again, no matter where it is, it's gonna be cataloged that way within the library system. So the book is going to be where the catalog, I mean, unless somebody accidentally puts it somewhere else, like you were talking about, they put it on the wrong shelf inadvertently, but that book is going to be wherever the card catalog told you that book was going to be, and that's where you're going to go find it. It's no different than it being in a different spot. Like, I'm okay to discuss the different aspects of things. I'm just trying to understand what I'm trying to understand this idea of how location, I mean, location is like one of the issues that we have here.
Well,
I just don't understand it.
well, first, this totally defies our own policies. We're going against our own policies with that.
I want to try to, I want to try to work with you. Dan, in the, just go with me for just a minute. Dan, in the adult section, do we put markers on books that says this is a mystery or this is a romance?
No.
We don't in our library. I know some libraries
Well,
do.
we used to, there were some way back
That-
until probably like 2010, and then we stopped putting the genre stickers on.
So we don't put genre stickers on.
No.
We do in the kids section group together all the Harry Potter, or I mean, we have series books all grouped together, don't we?
They're by the same author, so that
Right.
just works.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's also the section in the fiction section in the kids' books where the books are all in alphabetical order by author, correct? And in nonfiction books, they're in order according to the Dewey Decimal System and how they should be cataloged. A time-proven system of organizing rather than putting all the blue books on one shelf and all the red books. You know, there's some people that decorate like that, you know, or whatever. We don't want to put books. Okay, so we create this family resources and somebody's watching that shelf and a little 11-year-old girl goes over there and pulls it. Are we gonna, oh honey, what are you gonna get into?
No,
You're sure?
yes, that's not the point.
I don't want to create a stigma for the child to be afraid to go to that section. I don't want to create a stigma.
Well, then we
For-
probably shouldn't title it sucks.
You may
Probably
be
not the
right.
right idea.
But you know, I looked at family resources sections for libraries, just doing an internet search, included drug use, included drug resources of how to get away, and it brought me back to other discussions we've had. Family resources would be more than just these things.
Correct.
And I don't think we have to pull potty training books. I don't think we have to pull bathing books, baby books, where we show, you know, pictures of babies in diapers or things like that. I think we need to take out this non-sexual and sexual nudity out of there. All the other things can be covered by what you have. I do not want to create a stigma. I want this, if this is gonna get voted, that shelf needs to be not near the adult section. It needs to be closer between the juvenile, the juvenile nonfiction and the adult nonfiction of the NRC are back to back. I don't think we need to be pulling Life magazine, Human Anatomy. Those are science books. Those are books that kids need for their lessons. They're not books that need to be put away on a high shelf or something like that. I don't know who's going to label these books, and that's my biggest question. That's my biggest concern. This has been going on since 1980. I'm the daughter of 2 English teachers, and one of them was a children's literature teacher at Warrensburg. And he probably read 100 books a month, new books that came out. And one year, if any of y'all ever went to the Children's Literature Festival over in Warrensburg, it was my dad that created that. And he had Betty Miles, 1980, Maudie and Me and the Dirty Book. A book, you know, and I went down to my kid's shelf, and I have it because it's autographed by the author. And my daughter, who's here visiting, says, "Oh, I remember reading that book. It's about a 5th grader that goes and reads to 1st and 2nd graders. And the book that they gave her to read had puppies born in it. And then they called the book about puppies the Dirty Book. And it created such the uproar. So this has been going on since it's been going on since books have been published forever, you know? And
So do you have, we keep talking, but do you have a better proposal that
the
of
only
something that you
people
would be
that are
agreeable to?
No, the Dewey Decimal System is a proven system.
Yes.
And, you know, it's in some libriaries.
So I thought this
So
was a
we-
work
we-
session. We were
it
gonna
is-
work
it is
together.
a work session, and I tried. I spent 2 hours at the library.
Reason.
I just,
I will further define this. I will get this to you in plenty of time, and I will ask for a vote on a new, better defined policy. So,
I
if
wanna
you
know-
guys don't have anything to really, like, you don't want it, you want to stick with that, we're really discussing nothing.
what's the criteria for pulling a book off of the regular shelf to put in on these other shelves? What is the criteria?
I thought that I explained that we were trying to meet the needs of the community.
Well, which community in Cass
All
County?
of them. All of them. All of them. And
My,
You know-
my family community, we don't need them on a separate shelf. We know where to look for them on the shelves ourselves.
right, and so you don't care about any of the outcry from the parents that are like, gosh, we can't eat, we don't trust the library.
Look at your kids'
You don't
books
care.
before they walk out the door with those books. And why do we need,
Because you shouldn't have a book on a shelf where people are having sex in the pictures, whether it be drawn or not, in the children and juvenile area. And I'm sorry if there's people that think that's good and that's wonderful and that's okay. But not all parents think like that.
And then
You
they
are
should
taking
take care of
parents,
their children.
they just feel like they can't come here. That's the thing. They feel like they can't come here and you don't care. And you don't care.
Oh, I do care.
No, you don't.
Oh,
No, you do. So
Hold on.
come to a consensus
Wait,
and
stop.
you try to understand.
Can we please stop?
My,
Okay,
I,
hold on just one second, Becky. Look, I mean, we're 5 people who have been appointed to a board. Our job, our role is to set forth the direction, the policies, all the things that are entailed within a library. As a for the community that we serve.
That's right.
So I just want to keep reminding us of that. And there are a lot of different ideas within our community. So I think if you'll just consider what Jessica's attempting to do is try to find a solution that doesn't exclude some parents or some families within the community that feel like they want a safer place or a safe place for their kids to go. I'm just going to be honest, I don't know the answer. I'm looking to try to help. Looking to try to say, how can we potentially come to a way that all of the people within our community want to come to our library? That's where I'm coming from. I'm listening to everybody talk, and the last thing I really want us to do is have all kinds of finger pointing and arguing and you this and you that. It's how, if our goal is, and I think Jeremy said it very very well early on, how clearly do you find the terms and trying to accomplish your goal? What's your goal you're trying to accomplish? If I can say what seems to me the goal that is trying to be accomplished is creating a children's section where all of the families who are part of our community can feel good about coming to. And so if that's the goal, if that's what is trying to be done, then what I'd like for us to do is actually work towards being able to see, are there potentials? Are there possibilities? Rather than just going, well, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I think, and that's it, we're done. Like,
who is going to pull that book and put it on the other shelf? I have worked with this library since 2005. I started serving on the foundation in 2005. And the whole purpose of the foundation at that time, in the tough times, was to fund summer reading. And we would raise money with baskets and just whatever we could sell. Shopping bags, whatever we could sell to raise money for summer reading, so kids could take a book home as a reward and things. And it's, adults, yes, we need new adult books, but the library is most important for the children. Books are expensive for children. You buy a $15 to $20 for a hardback picture book, and there's only 16 to 32 pages in a picture book. And a parent can't go out and buy a picture book a week, but they can go to the library and check out 5, 6, or 10, a bundle of books for their kids, and then take them home and take them back 3 days later after they've gone through that book with that kid. And it's the parent reading to that kid. It's the 1,000 books by kindergarten that are important. These books are important to the girl that lives with her dad and is afraid or uncomfortable asking questions. And so they go and they get the book. And I know you're not trying to limit them getting the book, but that girl might be embarrassed to go to that section while she can flip. It's at the NRC, they're right off the aisle. They're right there. She can grab it. She can check it out. She and her dad or whoever she lives with can go over it. We don't need to be creating the stigma. So no, I'm not going to go with the sex books or whatever. But
Sorry.
some and the book Roger has there is not the book that's in our library. Okay? That's the newest edition, and we don't have the newest edition, and people are not checking it out. So, and they're not. I don't know. I'll be quiet.
Becky, you said that at the NRC, hardly any of these books have been checked out.
Correct.
Then I don't understand the big problem with moving them to another section if they're not that popular.
They belong in the 600s with the 900s or whatever, wherever
600.
they are in the Dewey Decimal System. They go right there.
What would you think if, because I can look, I mean, I brought with me, like, there are, and I just looked at books, I mean, based on what Jessica gave us, I was looking for books about sex or about the human body or whatnot. And would it be a good idea? Would it be something that maybe our library should pursue is, okay, it's the same book, but in different library systems, it's in different places. Maybe it would be worth our while to say, hey, what's the criteria that your system uses to place these types of books? Because we're looking to see if we can solve something that seems to be a problem within our community and going, what's the criteria that your system uses? Because I can look at this book, it's not The Stork, a book about girls, boys, babies, bodies, families, and friends. Its ages are preschool to third grade. And at one library, it's in the juvenile nonfiction. Another library, it's in the parent-teacher collection. Another library, it's in the adult nonfiction section. And so I'm just thinking, obviously, these different libraries have different criteria because they're locating these books in different places. So maybe rather than just going, it just has to stay where it is because this is the way we've always done it, or it has to be moved and done like this because there are some parents there are some families who don't like it. What if we explore what is the criteria from other libraries that caused them to say this is where we're putting these types of books? Is that
There's one more thing.
yeah?
They showed me at the NRC today an app that every parent can put on their phone called StoryGraph. And you go into StoryGraph, and there are now handouts available at all of our branches, I'm understanding, or will be, or whatever. You go into StoryGraph, and it, like I typed in, the other book I checked out today was Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, by Judy Blume. And I typed in, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And it comes up and it gives me a short synopsis on the book. It tells me what ages the book is available. It has reviews from other parents, not from the publishing world, not from the author, but they rate the book. They tell, how many people liked it. There's percentages. I haven't had a whole lot of time. I got home at 2:00 and then came here at 4, so I haven't had a time even to load it on my phone yet. But we need to talk about resources for the parents to help choose their books. And I'm not talking just about sexually related books. I mean, are we going to take out books like The Diary of Anne Frank because she has a period in it?
Becky, I think you're losing the point of Jessica's proposal. And we
Okay.
need to focus. I mean, we're not, anyway.
Are we gonna take out the Diary of Anne Frank because she has a period in it?
Okay, this book
That's-
has boys, shows naked boys having erections. It shows them with clothes on having erections, shows them how to put on a condom. It shows how to masturbate, girls and boys, shows how to explore your own body. It shows it's like 10 or 12 naked men with all their parts, 10 or 12 naked.
I've seen the
You've
book.
seen it, and how can that not bother you that it is in
Well, it's not,
children's?
it's not about whether it bothers you or
No,
not,
but I
but
mean, it's not
I
appropriate.
think the
It's not
question though
appropriate.
is, do you compare the Diary of Anne
Right.
Frank and say these
Yes.
are apples and apples? I think that, I think that it leads to the idea, what is the criteria that can be set? And
So
having
set the criteria and then we'll go from
understanding
there.
what our current criteria is and being able to potentially see what other libraries' criteria set, because it's very clear to me that,
I may
we
not
don't all
look
have
at
the
that
same
book,
criteria.
but somebody may need it. I'm sorry. It's
So what
called
happens-
censorship. It's called
No.
it's called the
What-
freedom to read.
What happens?
And the
wait a second.
First Amendment.
Wait a second. What happens? What
Got
happens?
back into the
What
book.
happens with, the library that says this book, The V Word, True Stories About First Time Sex, which is rated for 14 and up? So is this
That would not
library
be in a juvenile
is
section.
I'm just saying, I'm just bringing different things to yes, in one library, it's in the young adult nonfiction, but in a different library, it's in the adult nonfiction. So are they censoring to the teenagers, to the young adults, that book because they made a criteria that placed it in a different location?
So are we now
No, I'm just asking
stretching
that.
it to the young adult books too?
Becky, please don't get me wrong. I'm just using it as, let me go back and find one that's
Book
talking about
placement
little children.
is
Let's
So
see,
that we can,
let's
so
see
that we
more
can,
criteria next month.
here we go. So this book that we went back to once again, I'll go back to it. It's not the stork. A book about girls, boys, babies, bodies, and families and friends. Okay, so is it censoring when one library puts it in the adult nonfiction section, even though it's for ages preschool to 3?
What branch?
It's Crawford County Library, Steelville. There's Carthage Public Library, puts it in the parent-teacher collection.
Okay.
So my question is, are they censoring that book? Based on what you're saying, you're suggesting that they are. But what is the criteria that's giving you that understanding?
It's each individual library's decision.
Right. And so my point is, if we're looking to try to,
Let's see what the
I'm-
criteria, come back with updated criteria and who's
So
going to be doing it.
Did you have a suggestion on?
Are you
what you
open
would like
to, are you open to looking at other library districts and what is their criteria that got them to say, hey, these children's books, what's that?
I've shared copies of other libraries' collection development policies in the past, and they have been discarded. They have not been considered at all. And I've done
Okay,
a lot
well,
of research on
wait
this.
just a second. I want to say a collection management policy isn't necessarily giving the in and out details of the criteria that is used
When deciding.
in deciding where a book goes.
But these did.
Uh,
I have shared them.
I-
I have shared them, and I've shared them many months. And they do have criteria. We have criteria, and as I was saying
I don't
earlier,
think, have we ever seen a criteria for our library?
I shared it in the board packet for the June 21st, 2023 meeting.
All right, I'll go back and look at it.
The decision on where materials are shelved is based on age, comprehensive mental, physical, and emotional needs, including interests relative to developmental stages, reading level of their intended audience. That covers a lot. So, to your point on if something is in a different section, how someone can't find it. Think about a 10-year-old who's in the library looking for a book for 10-year-olds. If they are browsing, not searching, if they are browsing and they want to find a book that's written for 10-year-olds, for them, 10-year-old Timmy wants to find a book written for him, he would go to the section of the library where he would find books for 10-year-olds. And then I can go into the cost if you'd like. It's pretty substantial though. If we want someone to go through 83,000 items and determine where those items need to be.
Why are we going through 83,000 items?
Because that's how many items that fit that criteria are in our collection countywide. Not
That
copies, but
fit what
items.
criteria?
The let's see, children and juvenile sections.
Okay, so
83,000
that's
items.
all of the books in the
Yep,
children and
all
juvenile
print,
section.
yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Well, if you have,
I
I mean,
can share it. It's $1.2 million if you want it done in 1 year because we have to have that many staff, the equivalent of 18 full-time staff, to read, review, and assess all of these items and recatalog them. If we're going to have a separate section and recatalog it to reflect properly in the catalog. I've spent a lot of time researching this.
Just
So.
that 600 be reviewed.
Yeah, what if we just, I mean, like, this is broader than I really wanted it to be. I mean, I'll narrow it down.
In order to look like we are not being biased in any way based on content or all of that, we need to do this systematically for all items in those aged collections. And so
please,
if our budget is staying at a neutral level, it's going to be a lot harder to do this in 1 year. That's $1.2 million. I don't know if taxpayers want all of their money going toward that. But I could be wrong. I don't know every taxpayer.
well, you know,
So
it does lead
I
me
just wanted to
to, it
present
does
that.
lead me to a question in my mind is, okay, may, and I'm not, I don't know, does the library need to hold some town hall meetings over a period of time to hear from the citizens and patrons who, you know, the citizens and patrons who are the ones who are funding the library? And there are, you know, if there are people who are saying, we don't come for these reasons, and we can, you know, explain to you what that is, and we can share with you our thoughts, and other people are I mean, I don't know if it will, I don't know if it will, you know, it saddens me every day when I see the absolute polarization of every topic or idea and being polarized, and you think this way and you think this way, and nobody can come together in the middle. But so I don't know if it would depolarize, but I'm trying to present just ideas, thoughts, ways that, you know, maybe we could,
And
things that we can consider.
ultimately, after all this is said and done, there's still a challenge process. Any person in this county, any taxpayer, any patron, they can fill out a request for reconsideration form on any material, and we take that book off the shelf and we review it and we determine if it does in fact meet our criteria and is in the right place on the shelf.
Right. Yeah.
You said something, which I can remember exactly, but how we have to go through all 83,000 books.
Yeah,
Or
it's
else
and change, yeah.
yeah, or we would get, what was the word? If we
If we
didn't
want to avoid
avoid,
looking like we're being biased in any way based on
Right.
content.
right,
Yeah.
okay. But yet the library that does have the choice to put any book anywhere they want,
Based on criteria.
based on,
Yeah. Mhm.
So,
Yes.
so we
So
just,
what he's saying is, if we change the criteria, right? Is it what you're saying is, if we change the criteria, then we have to go through the process of every book, seeing how it meets, where it meets within the criteria. Would that be correct in the understanding what you're saying, Dan?
Well, I was referring specifically to a policy like this. But in the
Well, with a
collection,
policy like that, it would change the criteria, would it not? Or would it not?
if you change the criteria and the board believes that there are items in the collection that do no longer fit those criteria, then yes, qualified staff would have to go through those and assess every item. You can't pick and choose items because that makes it look like we're biased, and I don't want that. I know there's a lot of people in the community that think we're biased one way and the other. Really crazy. Uh, but in order to avoid any kind of perceived bias, we would need to go through everything. And that's a lot of work and time.
I guess I don't understand why needing one whole section of 600s, because it's already been put in that section.
Oh, your suggestion would be
Just to
To
focus
just-
on the
Just, the
600.
just say the children's 600s is over here.
so that's
Make it
totally
smaller.
different.
What about,
Make it a smaller
That's totally
policy.
so that's
What about books on dogs and cats? Those are in the 600s. Books on cars, those are in the 600s.
So what is the section that is,
It
that we're talking about?
it's multiple. It's not just like one
is
little
really-
Dewey. There are multiple places, but like the
Most are
600s in
in
general
this-
600s are one of the weirdest combination of topics in the Dewey Decimal System.
yeah.
So
It encompasses most of your body type
yeah.
books, but it doesn't
Yeah.
encompass everything.
It also includes cooking.
Yeah. Are there even some books that would be in the 300s?
In the what?
In the 300s?
Man, you
Or
are really
awesome.
testing my education here. I believe so.
Because I feel like I've seen some genres in the potential, but maybe
A lot of the archaeology books that I looked at today had nudity in them, in their statues and things like that.
Art books. Art books.
The art books.
Non-sexual
Yeah.
nudity.
We can take that out. Yeah,
Yeah.
that can go.
Why don't you?
So,
Sure.
so on that note, in 573550, which was just passed this last session, that also includes the restriction of school libraries being able to provide explicit sexual material to minors. It explains what it is, but it also says that, however, works of art, when taken as a whole, that have serious artistic significance, works of anthropological significance, materials used for science, including but not limited to materials in biology, anatomy, physiology, and sexual education, shall not be deemed to be within the foregoing definition. So even the state of Missouri has exempted those things.
Yeah.
So that's important to note.
yeah.
So let me get this straight there. If it's sexual education,
Uh-huh.
that's exempt, right?
It's
Yes.
not sexually explicit.
This book here, again, 81 scientists, 81 people with degrees edited this little book. 81 edited this book to make sure it was all scientifically valid. This book would have been exempted from the state law. Is that correct?
As I read it, I'm not an attorney. As I read it, I believe it would be exempt.
Well,
I think you
attorney.
put you on
Oh, no. Sorry, Chairman. It's been a while since we've had an attorney here.
You're saying, does this book, would this book be allowed in the library based on the state law? Is that what you're?
Yeah, and this is even for a school library, so it is specifically for school libraries. But yes, including but not limited materials, biology, anatomy, physiology, and sexual education.
Right, I mean,
Based on what it says here, changing bodies, growing up, sex, gender, and sexual health, it sounds like it fits the sexual education
Criteria.
category,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
And I'm just going off the cover.
yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
So, I mean, right or wrong, I think it. from the
So
cover,
it's not illegal to have it in the library.
Correct.
I mean, I guess is that what
I
you're
mean-
trying to determine?
But,
I don't know. I don't
yeah,
think
if
any
we-
of us
if
are
we- if we
questioning
were-
it,
If
right?
we were a school library, it would not be illegal to have that book.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think we were questioning the legality.
Right. I just wanted to make the point that even that law has exemptions for artistic, anthropological significance, sexual education, science.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all.
Gotcha.
I would also like you to take out prurient thought. Books don't.
Actually,
Books are not responsible for it. They're a thing. They're not responsible for an individual reaction.
Oh, but
Me
they are.
reading one book, like I don't read science fiction because I don't like it. But somebody else can read it and enjoy it. My individual reaction to that book Books are not responsible for that individual's reaction. Books are responsible. Books are for entertainment or information or um, uh, gaining knowledge.
Yeah.
But that's
So, so
You don't think that looking at books like that cause brilliant thoughts?
This, this,
almost definitely
this
they
book,
do.
Yeah.
I've actually read this book, I don't know how many times in the last 2 years. But, and I've walked around the streets and I showed it to people. I've actually given away 3 or 4 copies of it because somebody'd say, wow, I really need that book in my house. I've got my kids at this age and I'll hand it to them. Next 2 days later, I'll get one from Amazon again and so forth. Uh, the theme of this book, the theme of this book, and I look to talk to anybody who thinks they're pro-life, because the theme of this book is delay and abstain, delay and abstain, delay and abstain. And if you don't delay and abstain, what this book says is, okay, how are you going to finish school? How are you going to earn enough money to support a child? How are you going to do all of the problems that come with having a child too young? A person who has a child too young, too small, is going to more likely have problems with that child, and will have health problems with that child, more likely. So the odds are. It talks about if you have sexual relations with a lot of people, there's not just 3 or 4 diseases you can get. There's about 15 diseases you can get to go through all those diseases that you can get. There's nothing in this book that says go out and have as much sex as you can, as fast as you can, and produce as many children as you can. There's nothing in that book that says that. It says delay and abstain, delay and abstain, delay and abstain. Now, as a pro-life person, what is the number one thing that would solve the abortion problem is if all these kids have delayed and abstained. Delayed and abstained. I mean, if you delay and abstain, you're not going to get pregnant. I mean, there's only one way to not get pregnant, and that didn't work for one person in the world, and so and so this is this, and I said this before as we were discussing this over the last 2 years. This is the most pro-life book I've ever read in my life. It really is the most pro-life book I've ever read in my life because if a kid's thinking about going out and having sex, this will scare the willy out of it because he'll tell them everything that's going to happen, everything that could possibly go wrong, and information, scientific information, I don't think is ever bad. I don't think it's ever bad for a child to read the truth. And 81 people say this is the truth. And I don't think that's a bad thing to have. I don't think it's a bad thing for a child to read. That this is the truth. This is what's going to happen. How are you going to pay for? How are you going to pay for the diapers? How are you going to pay for all? It's really a scary thing. And at 71, I learned a lot in that book. Yeah, I really have. A lot of things that nobody ever told me. And so this is what we're restricting people from. This is what we're trying to hide from. We're trying to hide these books from. You can say, no, we're just putting them in another place. But we put them in another place and we call it family resources. That's basically hiding the book. Now, like I said, if you want to put all the sex books in one place and say this is our sex collection, you might get a little closer for me. But to say family resources, that is just such a broad term that the nomenclature, the semantics of it, just simply don't say what you're trying to say is in that collection. The wording does not say this is all the sex books that we could find. And if you want to say, okay, this is all the sex books we can find, put some of them like that, we'll probably get more sex books checked out than what she's been saying, because every young person's going to run over and say, "Hey, this is a sex book. Let's look at the sex." Technology changes and people don't change. You know what Aristotle said almost 2,500 years ago was young people only think about one thing, and that hasn't changed. In 2,500 years, that has not changed. That is still the psychology, the physiology, what's happening to a young person as they go through that period of life is they only have one thing really on their mind. And so if we put them beside some textbooks, I'll bet we'll get a lot of them checked out. You know, probably most people don't even know that we have textbooks in the library.
I think we
So,
just need to remember the library is only one cog of this. The library is a resource. It is a place for kids and parents to come get information. It's a public library. It's a free public library. Yes, we're paying taxes and but I will gladly let my $150 in taxes go to the public library to provide books for children all over Cass County. But it's also parents working together, it's grandparents, it's the school, it's the churches. My daughters, yes, we talked about it with them at home, but they also got it at church too. And the importance of uh, abstention and purity and waiting and things like that. And that's just something, we're just one cog of it, and we can't dictate it for the whole county.
Right,
So,
we can't,
So, I have a question. So my question comes back to, if we have, it's been shared that there are citizens within the county who either aren't coming to the library, who have concerns about these things. I guess my question to us as a board is, are we interested in looking to see if we can figure out, okay, what is the potential problem, and are there ways that we can solve it, and did we do everything we could to try to solve it and present that to the community, or are we just looking to, have one person believes this way, one person believes this way, and this is just the way it's going to be? Like, is there any interest? I'm just trying to make it, I'm just trying to be real here, make it real. Is there any interest to discovering, is there a problem? Is there a way for the library to solve the problem? And is there, what are the potential solutions to it? Because we are talking about, that there are citizens in the county who like the things the way that they are. There's some who don't. I don't know that we can make everybody happy, but the question I guess I just keep coming back to and listening to the conversation is, do we want to determine if there's a problem, and if we would like to figure out if we can solve the problem, and whether
do we want
and
to take a poll to the county or what?
well,
We
I'm
take
just
it,
I'm
I don't
asking
think it's a
the
scientific poll,
I
cause
mean I suggest I had just the thought today of, do we put together town hall meetings to hear from the citizens, the patrons. I'm stumbling over myself. Sorry, the patrons, and hear, actually, rather than us be the ones talking, we be the ones listening, and not just hearing for what we agree with or what we want, but come as students and say, what is the community saying to us? And try to discover, is there a problem that the library can try to solve?
Okay, I think we know there's a problem. I mean, we know there's a problem because we've had that outreach. I don't care. I can stay out of the library. I mean, if I don't like it, I can stay out. But I'm a trustee, therefore I've been hearing from the community.
But at the
You
same
guys
time,
don't care.
but at the same
Like-
time, I would say, as a board, I don't know that we as a board have, taken the time to just be students of the community and ask the community to come and say, tell us what you think the problem is, or tell us why you think there isn't a problem. Share with us so that we can be students and learn, is there a way that we can is there a problem that we need to solve, and is there a way, as we discuss the problem, can we even solve it?
well, I would say, as far as your town hall meetings, we've had how many of those over the last 2 years? I mean, but this is a town hall meeting right here. And
No,
they're
no, see, at a
they're
town,
not
no,
talking, but they've talked for 2 years.
a town hall meeting, we're quiet, we listen, and the meeting is about the people who speak to us.
If,
Right now, every meeting that we have is, okay, we have 15 minutes set aside for public comment, and, you know, some people, you know, there's sometimes, I mean, there hasn't been as many recently, but we're doing the talking more than we're doing the listening. That's my only, you know,
well,
thought in
if
the
we're
town
going to
hall.
do this, and I'm all for it, I'm for all the real good scientific, solid information I can get. I'm for absolutely every piece of scientific, solid information I could get. The only way that I can see we could do that is if we do a scientific poll of the county. I don't know how much that costs, probably several $1,000s. We can do a scientific poll of the county and find out where the county is actually at. We have a problem is the fact that where I go to church, everybody tells me this. Where I go to church, everybody tells me this. When I walk down the street, everybody tells me this. But that isn't scientific. That's just who we haphazardly run into during our lives because of the way we live our lives. If we had a scientific poll,
That told us what?
Huh?
I mean, I'm
a
not,
scientific poll about the attitudes of the people of Cass County concerning that.
The thing is, if people don't want to answer this poll, they won't. And, you know, your town hall meetings are an interesting thing. We're trying to build some consensus. We're trying to gain some information, try to find some common ground. I would see that it would have to be something maybe at each branch. I would be interested in maybe an outside person doing it, and we're there just for listening. We had people outside the group when we did our first strategic plan a long time ago. We hired an outside group to come in and do it.
yeah.
You know, as a former educator, I've been in a lot of consensus building professional development type meetings, but all of us would talk first with this person, and then they would develop a specific set of questions to lead the discussion, that so we don't just let it turn into a gripe session. There are people out there in that audience right here that might have some solutions for us. And but it's going to cost a little bit of money to do something like that. And it would take some investigation to find the right person or group. And we kind of need to do it by branch because different branches have different needs.
Yeah.
And it could also be used to help develop our future needs list that we're talking about for our budget. So you may be on the right track here, Tanya, but it's something we've got to. Probably Jeremy could help us find somebody that could, a professional person that could help us. He might even have somebody on his staff that could do it or something like that. But I don't want it to turn into he said, she said, or a gripe. And I know you don't either.
Yeah.
And it's cold in here.
It is. I'm trying not to look angry or anything. I'm just trying to be warm.
But I think you may be going down the right way here. We just keep piling on more stuff that we need and want to do.
Yeah, yeah. I guess my goal is to always look to try to work together.
Yes.
Rather than, you know, when what we see in society is everybody just, like, you know, if you don't agree with me, you're against me and I hate you. Kind of like that's just kind of how it's become for some reason. And I'm just of the mind that let's see, how can we work together? How can we accomplish something together? And I don't know, we may decide this is not something that the library can solve. I don't know.
Jessica, can you take this and fine tune it a little bit
Yep.
more? You've heard some things.
Yep.
Do we need to take it somebody call Carthage. What is your parent and teacher resources section and why do you have it?
Sure.
And there was
Okay.
another
And
library.
come back with that information.
There was a-
Don't push the passage of this. We got to get it done right now. Let's work it and fine tune it until we get a little more give and take in it. Is what
And
I'm
it may
asking
turn
you
out
to
that
do.
it's something that ends up being just part of a new expanded collection management
Right.
policy. So, but, yeah.
That's my idea. My keep thinking I'm done talking and I don't. I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate your back. Okay, help me see where we're sitting. I mean, I've had some thoughts. Where are we sitting? You're gonna work on kind of
Yep.
defining more
I'll
some of
fine
those
tune it
things.
And we're going to keep it within our group. We're going to keep it within Jeremy and them and us. We're not sending it out. This is still a working of our board.
There's another library, Lebanon, Laclede.
Laclede.
They have a family resource. They might be another, just what's that?
I know
What's
that
that?
they are one of the ones that I shared the collection management policy with criteria.
When did you do that?
I've shared multiple ones over the months.
That's
It's
probably,
it
it's probably
hasn't
just
yeah,
it's not
it's
been the
been
priority in the, we've
yeah
had so many other things
collection management keeps getting
pushed.
kind of yeah,
Yeah.
but
Okay,
I
I'll go back
definitely
and
still
look.
have them. So
Go back and look for it. Uh, Thoughts? What are you, I mean,
Yeah.
nobody else has really said anything about the, town hall,
I'm not sure how I feel about that. I feel like we could talk to kind of, I mean, I don't know. I'm not pro or con.
yeah.
I feel like we've all talked to so many people in our community.
I mean, I guess when I'm thinking about it, so like if 70% of the people show up and say we should have a section, or 70% show up and say, is that how we make our determining factor? I mean, because I think we know that we have both sides in the community. There's literally no doubt about that. But what I would love to entertain is some other ideas of books that maybe they think should be included in a family resource section if they believe in that, or their ideas along with those things. Because this really isn't a debate whether we're not figuring out who's on what side as far as, we got 51% here and 49%, so you 49% don't matter. I want to go, okay, how can we make this work for everyone so they all feel invited to the library and it can be a good place. So the main reason for me, if we were going to have a town hall, isn't to have a back and forth debate, but yet bring some ideas to the table so that, if you guys are looking at my policy going, well, this doesn't really work for A, B, C, and D. Okay, bring me a policy. Bring me something that you think works. An idea. Or if you don't care about having the section, then I guess you can stand to say, I don't care about having a section, Plain and simple. That's pretty short and sweet. But
Yeah, I mean, I look at it and just in my mind, I think there might be someone or there might be some people who might actually have we talked about Elizabeth Tyler. I mean, she came with this idea. There just might be people with other ideas if taken to heart that, I wrote down your statement. You want to make something work for everyone, so everyone feels welcome in the library. And so if that's something we want to try to accomplish as a board, then maybe listening to citizens in the county, they might have ideas that we could work with.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm just trying to get a feel for the wrap up and where we want to go from here and how, I don't want to dictate what takes place. Just trying to,
I'm gonna fine tune this. If everyone that wants to have a town hall, that's up to them, you know. I could go either way. Like I could go either way. Because I think that I can also ask for input, you know, and that will be emailed to us. We know dang good and well it will be. So
And we do
I'm good with that
appreciate,
too.
and
I
we do
most definitely
appreciate
do.
their emails.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
we
I
do.
mean, that's what I'm saying. They can communicate, and I read every single email.
yeah.
And so, you know, their thoughts and, you know, it's important to me what everybody's thinking about things.
I think we do at town hall or something similar to that. We have to take Becky's suggestion of having a knowledgeable moderator type of person. Basically, we've had 2 years of town halls, sort of, you know, and it just depends on depends on whether this 5% of the political spectrum shows up or this 5% of the political,
Exactly right.
and we have to always keep in the middle. I think the problem I see with the town hall, as opposed to other things, is we're going to get 5% of these people, get 5% of these people. We have 90% of people who've got other things to do in life,
Right.
and
Right. It just
we're
becomes a
going to miss
debate
we're
versus
going to miss
ideas.
the great middle. Somehow, if we're going to do this, we have to somehow get to that 90% in the middle, and somehow get them to this meeting if you want to have a meeting. Somehow we're going to have to do this, and we're going to have to do it more scientifically than just whoever randomly shows up.
Talking.
Yeah, we've got to have something more scientific than that if we're going to try to make a decision, except for the two people on the sides that you know are never going to get along.
Right. Coming close to our 2 hours.
I think so.
We
I
are
think we
coming
need
up on
to,
that, yeah.
I think we need to, close you're gonna work on some more detailed.
I'll get you a pile of information,
Thank
and
you,
I'll
Dan.
look at some.
Appreciate it, Dan.
I'll look at some firms or people who do the town hall thing. I'll contact who we used before to see if they would be willing or if they know someone, and we'll see what we can come up with.
And it may, just because it was something, an idea I threw out, doesn't mean it's what we ought to do. So we can,
Oh, I know,
we're
but-
not going to make that decision now,
but
but maybe
more
if we have
information,
information,
yeah.
helps us. I am learning. The more information helps I
And you
need
know, I
to
will
make
give
a
it to you.
better decision.
Yeah.
So, okay, is there anything else? Can I just see, we're going to call this work session closed.
Yep.
Thank you all for coming.